Labour simply doesn't understand the policies we need if the UK is to lead on global issues such as climate change and trade justice. Along with the Conservatives and the Lib Dems, they are still blindly locked in to the mindset of global free market and cheap energy from fossil fuels. They cannot see that we must deal with the global issue of peak oil and localise our economy if we are to reduce energy use. They choose to ignore the real human costs of the cheap imports that the West buys in to feed consumer culture. As Greens, we understand those cheap imports are manufactured at a cost of health and human rights. They are shipped at an environmental cost to future generations. They are traded at a cost to sustainable local economies at both ends. And they don't disappear when they're put in the bin. We're told it's cheaper to buy new, but that's not true. Because products are not disposable, people are not disposable, and the planet is not disposable. The throwaway society has had its day, and it's time to throw it away. When we say we want new jobs in green industries, we don't just mean the essential insulation and solar schemes that Greens are promoting up and down the country. We also mean creating jobs in local food production and in supporting repair, reuse and recycling. Let's hope the government does learn some of these lessons in time for the Copenhagen negotiations. The Greens are watching, and we will hold Labour to account if their deeds don't match their words. But it's not just on climate change where this government produces more hot air than real action. This government claims it values our civil liberties whilst extending detention without charge and allowing the police to retain the DNA of innocent people. This government claims it wants all young people to have access to higher education, yet continues to price people out through top-up fees. This government claims it wants to create a safer world, yet is pressing ahead with plans to replace the UK's nuclear weapons. This government claims it wants to re-regulate the banking sector, but the bonuses are back for the bankers and brokers, and the lessons from the credit crunch have not yet been learnt. It's no wonder that so many people feel betrayed by politicians when there are so many broken promises and so much complacency. A complacency that has also brought about the expenses fiasco. Not every MP was abusing the expenses system. But Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem and Nationalist parties have all had MPs caught up in the expenses scandal. Whether it be the Labour MP who claimed £16,000 towards his mortgage, having forgotten that he'd already paid it off. Or the Tory MP who spent £1,645 of your money on a floating hut for his ducks. And with the Lib Dem MP spending over £1,200 on mirrors, I think it's time that they took a long, hard look at themselves. It's no wonder that so many people that I speak to in Norwich South have totally lost faith in our Parliament. It's vital to our democracy that swift and thorough action is taken to reform the expenses system. MPs' expenses must be managed and monitored by an independent body and not by themselves, as I made clear in my submission to the Committee on Standards in Public Life. This is vital to restoring public faith in our Parliament, but it won't be enough on its own. We need root and branch reform of our political system to make it more accountable to the public and so people can see how they influence decision-making. As Caroline said yesterday, in our challenge to the other parties, we must clean up political finance. This means ending the corruption of big private donations and reforming state funding. We must guarantee transparency. This means a freedom of information law which bites and regulation of lobbying. We must update our democracy. This means an elected upper house and a fairer proportionate voting system.